He looked straight into my eyes, calm as if he were asking for a little more gravy, and said, "The best Christmas gift would be if you just died." That was Michael, my only child. So I gave him exactly what he wanted, but not before I canceled their mortgage, emptied every account, and left something on his desk that blew up his perfect little world in seconds. You want your mother gone? Be careful what you wish for. If you're watching this, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from. I need your likes and comments to know you're following my story. This all happened 3 days before Christmas, in the house I helped pay for but never really belonged in. I was folding towels in the laundry room, steam rising from the dryer as I stacked the warm fabric into neat piles. The door was slightly open. I hadn't meant to overhear. God, I wish I hadn't. Michael's voice came through low and bitter. Honestly, the greatest gift this year would be if she just died. My hands froze mid-fold. I stared at the red towel in my hands like it had turned to glass. Emily's voice followed, casual, like they were talking about socks. You said it, not me. The silence that came after was worse than the words themselves. My son. My only child. I waited, my heart pounding, hoping he'd laugh it off. Say he was joking. Say anything human. But he didn't. He just sighed. It's exhausting, her being here all the time. We can't keep doing this. I pressed my palm to the counter to steady myself. The towel slipped. I didn't care. She's not dying anytime soon, Emily said with a sigh of her own. Guess we'll just have to deal with it until then. I backed away from the door before I screamed. Or cried. Or collapsed. My knees barely held me up as I climbed the stairs to the in-law suite they so generously let me live in. My room. The one they never let me decorate. The one without locks. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing until my vision blurred. My fingers reached for the notebook I kept in the drawer beside the bed, the one with grocery lists and reminders to refill my blood pressure meds. I turned to a fresh page and wrote it down, word for word. The greatest gift this year would be if she just died. I read it again. Then again. Trying to convince myself I'd misheard. But I hadn't. My own son, the baby I carried through 28 hours of labor, wished me dead so he could have a more peaceful Christmas. The man who cried at his wedding, who called me his hero at his father's funeral. I thought about all the times I'd slipped extra money into his kitchen drawer when things were tight. The babysitting. The groceries. The 6 figures I gave them to buy this house in Cedar Falls. All of it meaningless now. I looked around my small space. The off-white walls. The single dresser. The folded blankets in the corner for when the grandkids wanted to sleep over. They hadn't wanted one in months. My throat tightened, but no tears came. Just an ache. A deep, hollow ache that spread through my chest and settled into my bones. I stood and walked over to the closet, opened it, stared at the suitcases I hadn't touched since moving in 3 years ago. The small one still had the airline tag from the cruise I canceled when Michael lost his job. I bent down, unzipped it, and pulled out the envelope I'd taped inside the lining years ago. The one labeled, Plan B. My late husband always said, trust people with your heart, not your money. I hadn't listened. But I remembered his words as I took out the co-ownership contract and the deed with my name still on it. I found out Michael never filed the updated paperwork, never paid the lawyer to finish taking my name off. He kept saying he'd get to it, but he never did. I pressed the papers flat on the bed, and my hands didn't shake anymore. They felt steady, calm, like they finally remembered how to protect me. I picked up a pen and wrote 4 quiet words under Michael's coat. I heard you, Michael. I stayed in that room most of the night, barely blinking, because I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I heard his voice again, the same line. The greatest gift this year would be if she just died. My own son. I didn't know what stung more, those words, or the way Emily didn't even flinch when he said them, like it was just true, like my death would be a relief. The next morning I sat at the kitchen island, sipping lukewarm coffee and pretending my stomach wasn't twisting into knots. Michael walked in first, rubbing his eyes like a kid who'd overslept. Morning, he mumbled. I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I might scream. Emily came in, as always, in a matching outfit and full makeup, barely looking at me while she scrolled her phone. They moved through the kitchen like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just shattered me. You okay? Michael finally asked. You look pale. Just tired, I said. I didn't sleep much. You should try melatonin, Emily offered without looking up. It works wonders. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to stand up and ask, does melatonin fix having a son who wants you dead? Instead, I stirred my coffee and nodded. My eyes drifted to the living room where the Christmas tree blinked softly. The kids had taped paper snowflakes to the windows last week. I'd helped, I always helped. Every year since I moved in, I tried to make the holidays feel magical. Stockings, crafts, even the stupid matching pajamas Emily insisted on for Instagram. 3 years ago, when Michael called in tears because his loan fell through, I sold my house, the one their father and I had built, and I wired $120,000 to his account that same week. When the realtor asked whose name would go on the deed, I said both. Michael promised I'd always have a place. You'll live with us, he said. The kids will love having you close. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. I moved into the in-law suite with nothing but 2 suitcases and my husband's favorite chair, because Emily didn't want any of my old furniture in the house. She said it didn't match her aesthetic. Now I couldn't walk into a room without asking permission. Don't move the couch, don't rearrange the pantry, don't use that bathroom when we have guests. I was a ghost in the house I paid for, a silent, careful ghost who folded towels, bought groceries, and bit her tongue every time Emily rolled her eyes. Can you pick up the kids from school today? Michael asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. Emily's got a nail appointment and I need to take the car in. Sure, I said, like I always did. My voice sounded steady, but inside I was crumbling, so I took another sip of coffee just to have something to do with my hands. He looked at me, really looked at me. Are you mad about something? Why would I be mad? I asked. No reason. You just seem off. I'm fine, I said. Just tell me what time. He nodded and left. Emily didn't say a word. She just stood by the fridge eating yogurt out of the container and texting, her acrylics tapping. I wanted to smash that phone against the wall. Instead, I picked up the mugs, washed them in silence, and wiped down the counters. My chest ached, but I kept moving. That's what mothers do. We keep moving. I went upstairs to the guest room, my room, and opened the drawer with the documents I hadn't touched in years. The deed, the co-ownership agreement, the notarized letter from the lawyer. They never filed to remove my name. They said it wasn't necessary, that we were family. I stared at my signature, so neat, so trusting. My reflection in the window looked older than I remembered, tired. I touched the edge of the paper and whispered, maybe it's time I remembered whose name is still on this house. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just holding that deed like it was the last piece of proof that I hadn't imagined all the years I'd given, all the sacrifices I'd made. My fingers moved without thinking as I reached into the drawer where I kept old mail, the kind no one opens unless something's gone wrong. The top envelope had the mortgage company's logo on it. I tore it open slowly, not because I was nervous, but because deep down I already knew it wouldn't be good. Past due. I read the words twice, then again, just to be sure. They were 3 months behind. 3. I stood up fast, like my body couldn't sit with that kind of betrayal. I walked over to the tiny desk in the corner of my room and opened my laptop. I hadn't checked the bank account in a while, the one I set up when I first moved in, just in case they needed help. I'd stopped keeping track after the second year because Michael always acted like my money was just there if needed. Apparently, it had been needed. Repeatedly. Thousands gone. Quiet little withdrawals Michael had made without ever asking. The joint account I opened to help with emergencies had become his personal ATM. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the numbers, sick to my stomach. Groceries. Utilities. Random charges from home improvement stores. I wasn't just living with them. I was funding them. Every time I thought I was helping, I was actually just cleaning up their mess in silence. I heard the front door open downstairs. Emily's voice floated up, too loud and too cheerful for someone who couldn't pay the mortgage. The shoes came off. Finally, Michael laughed. Don't tell my mom. She'll freak. She's not even up here, Emily said. She's always in her little cave. My hands curled into fists. I walked to the stairwell and stood where they couldn't see me. That emergency account is empty, Michael said. Completely drained. I checked this morning. What about her other one? Emily asked. The one you said she used to buy Christmas gifts. She barely uses it. She's old school. Still writes checks for everything. Maybe she won't even notice if you pull a little. We're only talking a few hundred. That's not the point, he snapped. I'm not robbing my mother. I waited for him to follow that up with something that sounded like regret. He didn't. He just added, I'll figure something out. I backed away before they saw me. I sat back down at the desk, my heart pounding so hard it was hard to breathe. I clicked into the other account, the one I hadn't touched since David died. My small safety net. Just over 18,000, still there, untouched, hidden from them because for once I'd listened to my gut instead of my heart. I closed the laptop and stood, pacing the room, whispering to myself, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. They've been bleeding you dry. My head buzzed with questions I didn't want answers to. How many times had I bailed them out without even realizing it? How many groceries were bought with my card? How many bills paid, just this once, with money I wasn't supposed to touch? I thought that was the worst of it, until I heard my son's voice behind me. Hey, Mom. You got a second? I turned slowly. Michael was standing in the doorway, all fake smiles and easy charm. Sure, I said, keeping my voice even. What's going on? Emily and I were thinking maybe after the holidays we could talk about rearranging some of the finances, just to make things smoother. Smoother for who? For all of us, he said quickly. I mean, you've got money sitting in that emergency account. Maybe we should consolidate. Put everything under one umbrella so nothing falls through the cracks. So you can manage it? Well, yeah. I mean, I already handle most of the bills. It just makes sense. I let the silence hang there long enough for him to shift uncomfortably. I'll think about it, I said. But that money is still mine. Of course, he said. I just meant. No, I cut in. You meant what you said. And I heard you. All of it. He blinked. What? Nothing, I said quietly. I just need some air. I walked past him, down the stairs, and out the front door before I lost it. The cold air hit me hard, but I didn't care. I walked around the block, trying to calm the storm building in my chest. Every step felt like a countdown. I wasn't the one falling apart anymore. They were. And they had no idea how close I was to walking away and taking everything with me. I walked until my legs burned. When I came back, no one asked where I'd gone. Michael was on the couch watching a game. Emily was in the kitchen lighting one of those overpriced candles she loves to post online. I went straight to my room, locked the door, and pulled out the envelope I'd taped under the bottom drawer 3 years ago. David's handwriting was still on the label. Plan B. My heart ached just seeing it. He always said to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. I hadn't thought I'd ever need this. I opened it slowly, like it might explode. Inside was everything. Copies of the co-ownership deed, letters from the lawyer, a list of the account numbers he'd made me keep separate. He'd insisted we protect ourselves, even from family. He warned me. Especially from family. I hated him for being right. I called Karen, the lawyer David and I had trusted for decades. She picked up on the third ring. Grace, is everything okay? I need to know if the paperwork we filed on the house is still valid, I said. The one with my name on the deed. She paused. Of course it is. You never signed the removal. Michael never filed it. So I still legally own 40%? Yes. Why? I sank into the chair and whispered. Because they want me dead, Karen. And they don't even hide it anymore. Her voice dropped. Tell me what happened. I told her everything. The conversation I overheard, the drained accounts, the past due mortgage, and now how they wanted control over my last savings account. They're not even pretending to care anymore, I said. Grace, we can act. You have power here. You're not trapped. I don't want revenge, I said. I want out. But I want out on my terms. Then we draft a notice of intent to sell. I'll have it ready tomorrow. I closed my eyes. Make sure it goes to both of them. I want this to hit hard. After we hung up, I opened my suitcase for the first time in years and started packing. Not in a panic, not because I was scared, because I was done. I folded each piece of clothing like I was folding away the version of me that tolerated too much for too long. I packed light. Just the essentials. 1 suitcase, 1 handbag, my passport. Then I called the airline and used the points I'd been collecting for a decade. The woman on the other end of the line sounded cheerful when she said, "And where will you be flying, Miss Thomas?" "Paris," I answered. My voice didn't shake. "One way." As I zipped the suitcase, Michael knocked. "Mom, got a second?" I kept packing. "Sure." He stepped in, saw the suitcase and frowned. "Going somewhere?" "Thinking about it." "Is this about earlier?" "Look, I was just frustrated. Things are tight right now." "I know they are," I said without looking at him. "That's why I'm leaving." "You don't have to do that." "No." I turned and met his eyes. "I really do." "Is this about the money?" "Mom, we'll figure it out. You don't need to stress." I tilted my head. "So why did you empty the joint account?" He blinked. "It was an emergency." "Which one? The mortgage, the credit cards, or Emily's new shoes?" "Don't do this," he said, his voice getting sharper. "We're family." "You stopped treating me like family the day you said my death would be a gift." His face went pale. "You heard that? Every word." I walked past him, opened the top drawer, pulled out the legal envelope, and handed it to him. "What's this?" "My answer." I watched his hands shake as he opened it. "You're forcing a sale? Or we can buy you out." "Your choice." "You can't be serious, Mom." "I'm flying to Paris in 2 days. Believe me, I've never been more serious." He stared at the paper. "We don't have that kind of money." "Then you'd better find it, because Plan B is already in motion." I woke up the next morning to the sound of Emily screaming. At first, I thought something had happened to the kids, but then I heard Michael's voice from downstairs. "I don't know, okay? I paid it." "Well, I thought I did." I walked to the top of the stairs and saw them both standing in the kitchen, faces red and wild. The Christmas tree in the living room was dark. No lights, no music, no fake fireplace crackling on the TV. It was December 24th, and the power had been shut off. "This can't be happening," Emily snapped, slamming the fridge door. "We have guests coming tomorrow. My mother is flying in from Chicago." "We'll figure it out," Michael said. "Just calm down. Calm down." Her voice cracked. "Did you forget to pay the electric bill?" "No," he started. "I thought, Mom." He stopped himself. "You thought what?" I said, walking down the stairs slowly. Michael looked at me like a deer caught in headlights. "You thought I'd pay it?" I didn't raise my voice. "I didn't have to." "I mean, haven't you been?" "No, Michael. Not anymore." He rubbed his forehead. "You're really doing this now?" "You told me to disappear," I said. "This is me disappearing quietly, responsibly. Just out of the way, like you wanted." Emily stared at me. "You can't just cancel payments without telling anyone." "You mean like you canceled my presence in this house months ago?" I walked over to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and pulled down a wrapped tin of cookies I'd baked for the girls. "You made your choice. I'm making mine." I placed the tin on the counter, turned back toward the stairs. "What are we supposed to tell the kids?" Michael called after me. "They'll wake up tomorrow to a freezing house and no lights." "Maybe tell them the truth," I said. "That some gifts come with a cost, and you ran out of credit." I spent the day finishing what little packing I had left. Folded sweaters, 2 scarves, 1 good coat. My passport was already tucked into the front pocket of my carry-on. Around 3 in the afternoon, I crept downstairs while they were arguing in the garage. I placed a small gift for each grandchild under the tree. Just 1 each. No ribbons, no glittery bags, just simple brown paper with their names written in thick marker. Inside each box was a letter from me. Not a goodbye, just love, memories, and a reminder that none of this was their fault. I went back upstairs and sat on the bed with the suitcase beside me. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. But deep down, something still felt off. My phone buzzed just before dinner. Karen had emailed the official notice to Michael's and Emily's personal inboxes. Subject line, Notice of Intent to Sell, Grace Thomas. The timing was perfect. The lights never came back on. Around 7, Emily stormed into the kitchen, grabbed her car keys, and left without a word. Michael followed her outside, yelling. I didn't go down. I stayed in my room, listening to them unravel piece by piece. At 4 a.m., I rolled my suitcase quietly through the hallway and down the stairs. The house was dark and cold, and no one was awake. I stood in the entryway for a moment, hand on the door handle, heart pounding but steady. I opened the door slowly and stepped outside. Snow had started falling. Not much, just a thin, dusty layer on the front steps. I pulled the door shut behind me, walked to the edge of the driveway where the airport shuttle was already waiting. As I climbed in and shut the door, I looked back once. The tree in the window was still dark. Not a single light blinking. That was their Christmas, and I hadn't even given them my real gift yet. I landed in Paris just past noon and didn't cry once on the flight. Not when the plane lifted off. Not when the captain welcomed us to Charles de Gaulle. Not when the man beside me asked if I was meeting family. No, I said, pressing my lips into a smile. I had left them behind. I wheeled my suitcase through the airport with steady hands and a quiet mind. The taxi ride to the apartment was long, but I didn't care. I watched the city blur past, bright holiday banners fluttering across buildings, people rushing in coats, lovers holding hands. No one knew who I was, and for the first time in a long time, that didn't scare me. It comforted me. I met with Lucille, a friend of David's from university. She handed me the keys to her place and said, "Stay as long as you like." I thanked her, and meant it. I unpacked just enough, 2 drawers, 1 small closet. I made a cup of tea, opened the window, and just sat. That night, I walked along the Seine with my coat zipped to my chin. The air stung, but it made me feel alive. I wasn't floating in anyone else's house anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was here. I'd barely closed the door behind me when my phone buzzed. Michael, then Emily, then again, missed calls, messages. I didn't open them. I didn't have to. I already knew what they were saying. The next morning, I opened my email and saw the one from Karen. Subject line, "You might want to read this." She'd forwarded the thread from the mortgage company. Michael had called in a panic. The mortgage was in danger. They were in default. "Grace Thomas is not responding," he wrote. "She must be traveling. She isn't part of the household anymore." Karen had responded simply, "Miss Thomas remains a co-owner, and she is well within her rights to act accordingly." I read it twice, then sent Karen a message. "Please handle everything through legal channels. I'm unavailable for direct contact." I'd been watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle from the living room window when my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Michael. It was the mortgage lender. I let it ring twice before answering. "Is this Miss Grace Thomas?" "It is. We're calling regarding a co-owned property currently in arrears. We've received your legal filing, but we'd like to confirm your intentions moving forward." "My lawyer will handle everything," I said. Just 1 sentence. "I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long time, the blue glow of the screen painting the little apartment walls. The Eiffel Tower flickered gold in the distance like a heartbeat, steady and alive. I set the phone down without typing back. I was not the kind of happy Emily meant, spiteful, triumphant, flaunting, but the kind of happy that comes when a door finally shuts on a room you should never have been in. The kind of happy that feels like a clean wound beginning to close. I poured another cup of tea and opened the window wider. Paris air, cold and damp, rushed in and wrapped itself around me. For the first time in years I wasn't bracing for someone to ask me for money, or to disappear, or to apologize for existing. I thought about the list I'd scribbled on the back of the grocery receipt. 2 columns. Things they took. Things I had left. Tonight I would make a new column. Things I'm building. I wrote the first words on a fresh page in my journal. A my own bank account, untouched. A my own key to my own door. A quiet mornings. A French classes at the community center Lucille mentioned. A Christmas in which no one calls me a burden. It wasn't a plan for revenge, it was a blueprint for a life. A life with no more secret accounts taped under drawers, no more whispered pleas in the dark, no more waiting for someone else's permission to breathe. Below my window a street musician began to play a slow accordion tune. People stopped to listen. I leaned on the sill and closed my eyes. My chest ached, but in a way that felt like opening, not breaking. Emily and Michael could rage, call, text, threaten. The house was theirs to rescue or lose. The silence between us now was theirs to sit in. I had already crossed the ocean. For the first time in a long time, I let myself whisper the words aloud, just to hear them in my own voice. I'm free. And in the dark of a tiny Paris apartment, with the smell of bread rising from the street below and the city shimmering like a promise, Grace Thomas finally believed it. The final papers came through on a Tuesday morning. Karen's email was short, clean, clinical, exactly what I needed. All documents executed. Funds will be disbursed within 3 business days. Congratulations, Grace. It's done. I read it 3 times. Then once more, slower, just to feel the weight of each word. It's done. I wasn't waiting for someone's permission anymore. I wasn't holding my breath for the other shoe to drop. The house, the debt, the endless, just this once excuses, they were no longer mine to carry. I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the window. Paris was gray and bright at the same time, the kind of morning where you could smell the river before you saw it. Below, a man pushed a cart of fresh bread past a flower stand. Someone laughed on a bicycle. Life was just happening. I thought about Michael's photo the night before, the half-lit tree, the empty spaces where ornaments had been, the kids asleep on the couch. No caption. No plea. Just an image. It was supposed to make me feel guilty, I think. It didn't. It made me feel free. 4 years, I'd been the silent gravity keeping their world together. They had mistaken my sacrifice for obligation. They had mistaken my love for an endless well. But even wells run dry. I poured myself a coffee, sat at the small table with my notebook, and opened to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "What I will build now." And beneath it, my own bank account, untouched. A new language in a new city. A friends who see me, not what I can give. A Christmas where no one calls my life a burden. A version of myself who smiles without permission. I stared at the list for a while. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a plan to win. It was a promise to myself. My phone buzzed again on the counter, face down. I didn't reach for it. Whatever it was, another message, another guilt trip, it could live without me. I wasn't drowning anymore. I stood up, pulled on my coat, and slipped my hands into my pockets. Outside, the winter air felt sharp, alive. I walked without thinking, past the cafe, past the bookshop, down to the river. The Seine was steel blue under a pale sky, and for a long time I just leaned against the railing, breathing. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It wasn't the family Christmases I'd pictured. But it was mine. Entirely, wholly mine. And for the first time in decades, that was enough. The apartment was quiet except for the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. I sat with the documents spread out in front of me, rereading every line. It was official now. The house was sold, the debts settled, the accounts cleared. Michael and Emily would get what was left. It wasn't much, but it was fair. My part had been removed cleanly and legally. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad either. Just still. I packed the folder, slid it into my carry-on, and checked the clock again. I had a train to catch. As I zipped the suitcase, my phone buzzed. It was a voice message from Michael. I hesitated, then pressed play. "You win," he said. His voice was flat, tired. "We're moving into an apartment near Emily's mom. The kids don't understand what's happening. Neither do I really, but I guess it's what we deserve. If that's what you needed, you got it." I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something. His pain wasn't mine to manage anymore. I'd spent years absorbing the guilt, the blame, the heaviness of everyone else's chaos. I wasn't doing that anymore. I stood at the window, watching the Paris traffic glide by. Then I turned, wheeled my suitcase to the door, and locked the apartment behind me. The taxi driver helped me load my bags. "Business or vacation?" he asked. "Closure," I said quietly. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. At the station, I found my seat, sat back, and watched the city blur past. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who kept the peace, the one who swallowed her voice to keep the family together. That woman was gone. She didn't just leave. She evolved. My thoughts drifted to the kids. I missed them. That part still ached. But I'd left each of them something. Letters, photos, memories. One day they'd read those letters. One day they'd understand that love isn't measured by how much someone gives until there's nothing left, it's in the boundaries they draw to survive. I pulled out my notebook one last time. At the top of the last page, I wrote, I didn't just walk away. I walked toward myself. I stared at those words, then added one more line beneath them. Let them learn from the echo of my absence. As the train rolled forward, so did I. Not toward revenge, not toward regret, but toward peace, the kind you earn, not the kind you beg. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments.